All right, let's get this thing started then, y'all. Let's start with a little bit of housekeeping. We like to start with a feeling check-in. So you let us know on in the comments on YouTube and on IG how you are feeling today. Remember, good and bad are not feeling words. So we want to hear a true description of how you're feeling. How are you feeling, M?
I'm feeling hopeful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
How do
yeah.
you feel?
I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling like it's go time, nigga. I'm feeling like, goddamn it, it's head busting time. I'm feeling like it's 7 p.m. Friday. It's 95 degrees. I'm feeling like enter every sexy red quote into the chat right now. That's how I'm feeling. We at the red light twerking on some headlights. This is what we've been
Get out
prepared
the
for.
vote!
Do you see what I mean? That's the next t-shirt. That's
Wait,
it.
how we make voting pleasurable.
Think peace.
What? Okay. Um, I think I haven't had this feeling of hope like this in a long time, so it's a little scary for me.
Okay. Yeah. I think that it is calling forward kind of every positive thinking affirmation, um, everything that isn't within me to bring forward that hope. But I believe that we make deposits to withdraw now.
I
So
agree. And I also think, and we've talked about this on the podcast, right, that while you can't choose how you feel, you can lean into joy and we can lean into hope,
mm, come
right?
on.
There's a lot of things that are terrible that are going on and how this happened, which we're going to talk about, and the real risk to our democracy that we are facing. And there's also this opportunity to work together.
To work together. So we're going to be starting that process today with you all, and there may be more lives to come. So you all let us know, give us some feedback as we go, especially as we drill down to specific topics. So we want to also get into some what we call shared agreements to have this discussion, because we know that many of us have different opinions, but it doesn't mean that we cannot participate in what we call principled struggle. That means we struggle around these ideas to come to a point of consensus, not necessarily to be right or to call someone else wrong, but to get to a place of socio-political change. And so, number one, we are going to agree today to participate in principled struggle. Number two, we are going to agree today to call folks in and not out. The goal, if you are listening to our voices, is for us to come together as a community to lean into hope, as Margo just said. And number three, we can disagree with kindness and respect. And so, if folks agree with that, just give us a thumbs up in the chat. And if you have anything to add, let us know that as well. But we're gonna kick it to you to just tee this whole thing on up, girl. How did we get here? And also remind the people what you and I said. I'm not saying we said the thing, but we might have said the thing. So go ahead, friend. Take it up. Just take it over.
Okay, so let's just back it up.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, Tashira and I had a conversation around what was going on after the debate, the infamous debate. And we said, we never said don't vote. But what we said was, because both she and I are very committed to voting, and would have voted. However, what we said was if President Biden stays in the race, a lot of people won't feel motivated to vote because to them, what's the point? Right? There are two candidates at that time who didn't represent a lot of young people, a lot of people of color, a lot of women, a lot of different people who fall at the intersections experiences. And for newer voters or younger people, Biden, particularly after the debate, wasn't giving them the zhuzh to vote. Okay, so we talked about that and the risk of that, and how really, if Biden had stayed in, it was our principled belief that while we absolutely thought he was the better candidate for the future of our democracy, he probably wouldn't win. Okay. So fast forward, Biden has not left the presidency, but he has withdrawn his candidacy for president in 2024 and put his weight behind Vice President Kamala Harris, which is absolutely the right thing to do, in our opinion. But we want to talk about that because immediately and unsurprisingly, people have found issues with Vice President Harris, and we want to talk about that and how can we change the narrative with hope.
So we knew that was going to happen, right? That Kamala is poised for many reasons to be the recipient of a lot of hateful vitriol. And what I'm hearing Black women say, especially, is protect your peace right now, because what will be said about her is going to be easily internalized as what America actually thinks about all of us. So I would love to hear your thoughts, Em, because yesterday, as we were preparing, you brought something up about Kamala being biracial that I think hasn't really entered the chat about. Sorry,
Yes.
guys. Both of her identities racially.
Okay, so this is a very interesting part of what people sometimes call identity politics, right? So Kamala is biracial. She's Black and South Asian. The world sees her as Black, and I agree with that. But she is also South Asian. Her mom, who she has talked about a lot, who was an OBGYN, who sadly died young, was a single mother, was the primary parent, was the most important woman in her life. And much of her experience as a young woman, in particular, before going to an HBCU, was as a South Asian young person. South Asian American young person. Okay. I say that only because when Tashira and I were talking last night, it is important to bring into the chat that JD Vance, the vice presidential candidate on the Republican side, is married also to a South Asian woman, is married also to a South Asian lawyer, is married also to a South Asian person married to a white cis hetero man. Okay. And so, what is going to be very interesting to see, and I don't mean like interesting, like, ooh, it's going to be very painful, is to see how the right in particular weaves the rhetoric in differentiating JT Vance's wife from Kamala. And when they do that, there is nothing but misogynoir and anti-Black racism in play.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because JD Vance's wife and Kamala Harris, as you said, are two different people. And this gets back to just how race is a social construct has even been created in this country. And so even though Kamala, as you mentioned, had a very South Asian experience in her life, being her mother was a single mother, and that was part of her narrative in her household, her culture, her experiences, etc., that's going to immediately be negated because of the one drop rule that was created in this country at the start of enslavement, chattel slavery in particular, which is that if you have one drop of Black blood, that means you are indeed Black. And that remains true to this day. And so, as said, it is an anti-Black racism that Kamala faces that is very specific and unique that JD Vance's wife does not. On top of the fact that we know Asians are also oftentimes considered to be model minorities. And so there is a tokenization and kind of like a benefit that can be given to that group of people of color under a larger construct, obviously, but still, right? There's this myth of the model minority that group tends to benefit from. There are positive implicit biases that are associated with it. And so I think that distinction is really critical and an interesting one to note. So thank you for bringing that up, Em.
I mean, I also think it's important, and I thought about a lot of this a lot in the early 2000s, right? Obama was our first Black president. Obama is also biracial. Obama is white and Black. His mother was white.
Yeah.
And so, while all of the conversations are important because it's important to name racism when we see it and name misogyny and homophobia and kind of how someone's identities or intersectional identities lead to people distrusting them or giving them positive implicit bias, as you say. It's important to hold space for that. This person, Vice President Harris, is a multi hyphenate person, is if that's right. She's not one thing. She's had okay, so this gets me to another point, but I don't know if we're done with this part of the conversation.
No, go.
Okay, so I have also heard a lot of people poke holes in her experience.
Her experience, you mean like she's not experienced, or her experience as a prosecutor and questioning that, or both?
Both.
All right, let's get into that.
So many folks on the progressive left, where we sit, are critical because Kamala was a prosecutor, the police, law enforcement. Now, we can talk about that because it's important. I don't think that's an issue for a lot of people in the party, but it is an issue for the progressive left.
For sure.
Can you talk about why?
Because there are many examples of police in this country being the upholders of state-sanctioned violence in communities of color, and we're talking about anti-Blackness especially, but also I think people of Latinx descent who are immigrants to this country. The way in which they feed the mass incarceration in the prison industrial complex. And so for those on the progressive left, especially around the time of the racial reckoning or uprising of 2020 and what we saw with George Floyd and others before and after, what we had been calling for is either full abolition of the carceral state and or broad police reform. And what that means is for Kamala Harris, having been the attorney general of a state as large as California, the question is, and I don't know her record well, is what kind of policies did she shepherd during that time? And you have some thoughts on that. But I mean, she was the upholder of law in the way that it has been defined in this country. And we question, can we trust that while also having a decarceration and abolitionist agenda?
So I would posit, who's more prepared to reform a system than someone who's been in the system?
Well, I mean, it takes a commitment to do so. But yes, she
Correct.
knows it inside and out.
Right. And I think there's this real question, right? So I think we can talk about her record. She has some problematic things related to law enforcement on her record, but some very positive things too.
Okay.
And some very progressive thinking about what does what are the intersections between policing, law enforcement, and social programming. And so I think particularly in her work in elder abuse and in domestic violence, there are some really interesting things she did. I'm not from California. I've never practiced in California, and I don't actually think it's useful at this point to critique her California record. But what I
Okay.
do think is interesting and important is to think about what's at stake. So if we're critiquing Kamala's law enforcement involvement, is the alternative to Kamala better?
Absolutely
Which
not.
absolutely not. And so, right, we have a candidate on the other side who wants to destroy democracy, is going to roll back any protections for those who identify as LGBTQIA, those who are children, women. I mean, like immigrants. I mean, right? We know because we have read Project 2025. We know what the priorities of the party are. And so, what has Kamala said that we agree with, and where can we put our energy? So, I think her positioning around reproductive justice is exciting, right? There's a limited amount the executive branch can do given the overturning of Roe versus Wade, but there's something. Her commitment to Black maternal mortality and disparate birth outcomes is something that can get us as a community excited around activism. Her commitment, and this is for all the mothers on the in the chat, her commitment to childcare and understanding, even though she herself is not a biological mother, she's a stepmom, but understanding how the financial impossibility of robust childcare is causing women to leave or not be in the workforce as they may want. Universal pre-K, right? And we can talk about this too, Shai, right? I want to hear your thoughts. I think she's been a little muzzled over the last 4 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think now is the time for strategy. And so any criticism that I could have had for Kamala, let's say if she was my state's elected official, is very different than where we are today. Am I voting? Yes. Did I feel that Biden needed to step down? Yes. Am I excited about a Kamala Harris potential presidency? Absolutely. Because I think this is what we need in this moment politically. So the idea of going back and critiquing her record, I think we need to be very careful on the progressive left about fumbling the bag, because spending too much time on that is going to suppress the very thing that needs to happen, which is voter turnout. Now, once we get past November, we can renegotiate, re-strategize, collect ourselves, catch our breath. And I think actually the lead up to November is just as important, if not more, than what will happen afterwards. Because my fear, and we saw this in the era of so-called color blindness, is that all of this work was done around Obama. And the second we have a political gain, then everything just stops. And a gain to some, not to all, right? The organizing stops. We stop the door knocking, the contributions, looking at the down ballot, because local politics are arguably what affects our lives the most, right? And we just like, it's like we won a championship and then we didn't show up to practice on Monday morning. We have to continue to organize. And we have some comments here over on YouTube, on IG, which is about the call that happened last night where, hopefully I'm back on IG.
You are.
The call, okay, good. The call that happened last night where 44,000 Black women were together in a virtual space and raised over $1.5 million in 3 hours. So when we say there is hope, there is power in the people in grassroots organizing, I got a text for that call like 2 hours before it happened. So this is something that is happening in real time. And Summer says that she was on the call, not surprised. So what that means is that if that could happen, then we have many, many, many possibilities. So Em, can you tell us why? So many people have talked about why is Kamala just not signed, sealed, and delivered? All delegates are going in that direction. I think it's important to just note the political apparatus and how it works leading up to the convention. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because it's not as if Biden, God forbid, passed away and she's automatically now the president. I mean, he's saying he's not running for re-election any longer. So what does that mean as far as where we are right now mechanically for the party?
So I think we're in a complicated spot. I've been reading a lot that the party is really, and we've talked about this, that Democrats want to be seen as the party of following the rules. Or not just, I don't mean that flippantly, like they want to follow the rules. And they don't want this to be seen as what I heard the word coronation, right? That, okay, Biden's out, then it goes to Kamala. Biden won the primary. No one else, the Democratic primary. So
Right.
no one else ran against him. And so we're in this intermediary place where the person who won is stepping down. Do we have an open convention? And I think what I am seeing is that we have like a semi-open convention where in theory someone could put their name in. But the hope, I think, is that no one else does, because that would be incredibly detrimental to the party, because then it would split the vote even more.
Okay.
I've
So,
also heard that she's probably going to pick like a moderate white dude as her
okay.
running mate.
And why do you think that is for people who may not understand the nuance there?
To why she would pick a man versus Gretchen Whitmer or something?
And also a moderate white man.
Because the rhetoric on the right, so the Trump people are going to make, so it's an like, this is what Tashira was saying, right? Like the left sees Kamala as maybe a little too conservative, policy wise, which we get, but the right has framed her as this like zealot, like communist,
The bastion
right?
of woke.
Right, who like wants everyone to move to a commune in San Francisco and like have
Fucking
sex with each
gulag.
other,
Exactly.
right? And so, and racism and
For sure.
misogyny, right? There are a lot of people in this country who just won't vote for a woman. Think about Hillary, or won't vote for a black person, or won't vote for a South Asian person. And so I think they're going to try to capture that vote.
So the last part again, I'm sorry, my earphone went out, so I didn't hear your last comment, friend.
I think they're going to try to capture that vote for the people who would be unwilling to vote for her because of her identity or their belief that she's radical. Maybe they would be willing to vote for like a Mark Kelly, who's like a very moderate guy from Arizona.
Why do you think, and I don't know if something has changed since before we got on the call, so folks, please help us out, but why do you think that Obama didn't come out right away and say that he endorsed Kamala like Biden did?
I don't know. I was going to ask you.
Look.
You have thoughts. My thoughtician. Share your thoughts with us.
I think that people don't like her. I think that people do not like her. I have heard it from people on the inside, as in like a federal lobbyist, who said clearly people do not like her on the Hill. She can't keep staff. They don't like her leadership style. People just do not like her. Don't know that's the case with Obama, obviously.
People love him. People love him.
But what someone has said in the YouTube chat is black men are the ones who are also saying negative things about Kamala that are going to have to be organized to get behind her. So do not know what the Obama lack of endorsement represents whatsoever. I'm just saying optically it was noticed. I'm also saying that the rhetoric about her not being liked is not just from the public perspective, it also is inside as well.
Yes. So I have heard the same thing. And I just saw on our Instagram, someone's playing us in their salon. So thank you. That's amazing. Okay, can I say something?
Yes, go girl.
No one likes women who have power. No one. I have never heard someone say about a woman in a leadership position, they're so amazing.
Let's think about that.
There's always a critique. There's always something. Yeah. And I have heard the same thing about Kamala. So, but I also heard the same thing about Klobuchar and all my electeds here in Massachusetts, right? And we, people who identify as women, have not been given the same training and support that we need to be successful leaders. So it could be that people don't like working for her. It also could be that she is the best person who could beat Donald Trump.
And also, you cannot like working for someone and, to your point, still understand that it is the best for the American democracy. Those two things they're not mutually exclusive. Like,
right, like
likability should not be entering the conversation right now.
Also,
with where we are.
you don't have to work for her. Don't work for her. Right?
But you said something yesterday I thought was really important, and you hinted to this earlier too, is that what would it mean for us to understand that we are in a moment that is so critical that I don't have to love you. I don't have to see myself in you. I'm never going to be the police, right? I don't have to see myself in you, but what I understand is what is best for, in my opinion, where we are right now politically as a society. Because what we're up against is just straight up fascism.
Yes. Okay, can I say something else?
Yeah, and then we're going to get to like the voting blocks because I want to talk about like who needs to be mobilized.
So when did we get the message? I was a part of this too, by the way. I think we all are. But when did we get the message that we have to A, see our likeness in all national electeds, and B, like everything about them to be a good candidate?
Yeah.
That's bad information.
Well, I also have thoughts on it. I think the American political structure creates that binary thinking by only giving us two parties to seriously contend with.
I agree with that, but we can't really discuss that right now because that's all we have.
For sure. But I mean, to
we
your
can
point about
discuss
where it came from, I think it's
right.
important to know that when you only have two containers, you feel like everything has to be dumped into the one that is most similarly aligned with your values.
Correct. But I think that there's something that we've been told or we've internalized that if there's something that we disagree with about a politician or someone in a representative capacity, then we shouldn't vote for them ever. And I think that's just incorrect, right? We have too much at stake and we don't need to love everything about them. And we can also critique the system, right? We can say this is a product of the system that is keeping us down. We want to envision something better for all of us. And right now, that better is who we vote for in November. And then let's talk about having more options.
Well, I want to get into something that Dr. Sharon said. Hey, Dr. Sharon, she's in the comments on YouTube.
Hey, Dr. Sharon.
She said, when we start hitting the like button on all things in life.
Oh, Sharon.
Drop the mic.
Dr. Sharon.
Drop the mic. Because that's exactly what it is. It's the same kind of narrative that makes us want to shield ourselves from conversations and talking points with which we do not agree. So this idea that I'm in my own personal lane, I'm seeing my own individual needs, my own individual internet. Everything's about me, and maybe my family, and maybe my dog, and on Tuesdays my mama, and on Thursdays my grandmama. But outside of that, everything is hyper focused on the individual and the nuclear family apparatus, and that's it. So yes, when that is a byproduct, in my opinion, of our economic system, then what that means is it is difficult for us to see the world outside of our own individual needs. In this moment, leaning into hope requires something different. It requires us to see ourselves as part of a larger community, for sure. So Lisa said we can vote for people and ask more of them, and we can hold to people we put in office. We can hold people we put in office to account.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be both and. So let's talk a bit about voting blocks, because you had a really good point about that earlier when we spoke that I think we should put on the record today.
So I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but I'll say what I'm thinking and then
Sure.
So this election is not going. So you guys know that I'm based in Boston and Tashira is based in Greater Washington D.C. That's no secret. It's not up to us, right? This election is going to come down to votes in Georgia, in Michigan, in Arizona, in Ohio, in New Hampshire. And we have a democracy that isn't elected by the popular vote. It's the Electoral College. Is that what you wanted? Is that what we were talking about?
I was talking about you sent me a voice note this morning. You said something about white women.
Okay. So yes, that too. Okay. So first of all, my idea yesterday was like, how can we activate the justice community in some of these swing states. So if you are in some of these states and you want us to like come and do a get out the vote thing, just drop a comment or let us know, because it is something we're very interested in. Okay, moving on to white women here. Donald Trump won in 2016 because of white women. We have to admit that. It's very painful for a lot of us, particularly those who were activating on a different level. And so, why is Kamala the right person for women, white women, and mothers?
Mm-hmm.
Because she's the only candidate that is going to care for you or cares about you. You don't want to die from going septic, from an unplanned pregnancy, or because you were raped or SA'd, or if you are in an abusive relationship and need to get divorced and need state assistance for childcare, if you want bodily autonomy. There is only one candidate who cares about that, and that is Kamala. And this is an issue that impacts all women and people who identify as women. If you have a child who's neurodiverse, who identifies as LGBTQIA, which we know is happening all over the country at rates that are way higher than we were younger because there's more information and people have more self-knowledge, and you want your children protected, there's only one person you can vote for. If your child struggles with mental health issues and needs extra support in school, right? So as a mother, as a woman, as someone who cares about young people, to me, a vote for Donald Trump is a vote against your children.
A vote for Donald Trump is a vote against your children. Someone needs to hire you as like the comms director. You need to be on the comms team, dog, for the Harris campaign, because you just spoke directly to, I think, something that inherently all people, but especially women and white women, are going to care about. You spoke that language.
Thank you. So last night, I was at a dinner with my in-laws who are so lovely, and we were talking about this, and I said something to this effect, like, if you're a parent, there's no way you care about your kids. Like, if you care about your kids' well-being, you have to vote for Kamala, especially if you have a child who identifies as LGBTQIA, right? And that should be for everyone, right? Because everyone's kid is everyone's kid, right? And I was like, yeah, and like so many children identify as queer. And my mother-in-law said, well, how many? And I was like, oh, I don't know, like 40%.
I mean, that's of the population for sure, so I don't find that hard to believe.
And I don't actually know where I came up with that data point. And then my husband was like, how did you come up with that data point? And both my kids were like, well, I agree with mommy. Right? Because, right, that the young people, guys, live in a different world than we lived in. And thank God for that.
Mic drop. And also going back to young people, I think it's important to reiterate how they were not riding with Biden. And what I am hearing from my younger brother and from what I see on social media, actually, do you know who broke this for me? It was my 13-year-old goddaughter, Marley, because I was in here. Every device starts chiming, pick up my phone, and Marley's the first text that came through about what was happening and Biden stepping down, right? Leaving the presidential race. And so young people, to your point, not only are identifying in ways that are more self-aware and self-informed, but they also are excited about this moment. And so you have laid the groundwork or the analysis for why white women need to be organized. And I'm so happy you said that, Em, because I think about that often. Like, in a larger way, I often say, like, so much of our quote unquote DEI efforts or justice efforts tend to be too centered around the marginalized population. Like, we know the issues. We've had the lived experience Some of us have the theoretical knowledge. We talk about this in the group chats at work by the water cooler. Oh, I don't need you to organize me on this stuff. Go talk to the white people. And white people talk to other white people. And so someone said, it was my friend Tasha over on IG, Margo, how we get more Margos? How you got so woke, and can you share those talking points with other people?
That's really sweet.
More so Margos, please.
There's also another conversation, right, about whiteness, right? Like, and well, we know race is a social construct, right? Like we've talked about this, like in many ways, well, I don't know. This idea of like all white people being the same is just not true. Right? And I blame the right for kind of like making me embarrassed to be white.
This is why my grandparents think you biracial. My grandparents Margo got some black in her.
I don't have that much objectively. So there's like this with all of us, right? There are things that we hold in common of lived experiences, and there are things that are far apart. I have a lot of things in common with a lot of people, and a lot of things not in common with a lot of people. I don't have a lot of things in common with someone who's very who got married very, very young and had a lot of children and lives in a rural part of the South and is very religious. I don't, but I do have some things in common. And that's the privilege associated with being white or identified as white, and the privilege of parenthood and the responsibility of that. And I just cannot understand how someone who is a parent of any child, but particularly of children who identify as girls, could even think about their well-being and vote for a Trump.
Girl. So what you're saying, Margo, is that when Kid Rock got on stage at the RNC, you didn't see yourself? You didn't think to yourself, this is the moment I've been fucking waiting for?
Or when he was sitting next to Toby Keith and his trans-hating wife. I think it's so easy to fall into this rabbit hole of like, how could they? Because it's so ludicrous. It seems like a joke, but it's not a joke.
It is real. So we are going to be mindful of time because we don't want these devices to cut us off. I do want to just lift up some of the comments over on IG, and Em, if you could do the same thing on YouTube, and we'll just kind of pivot back and forth.
Sure, but how do I do that?
So there
Can I do IG? Let me do IG.
You do. Okay, you do IG, friend. You do IG. Okay, I'm okay. Okay, while
everyone,
you pick a comment, I'm going to pick a comment from YouTube, and Dr. Sharon said, white women tend to vote for their whiteness rather than their womanness, as it is economically prudent for many.
One second. There's so many amazing comments. Oh, this is also an interesting one. Vanessa Mason says, Obama built his own apparatus. We cannot solely rely on the DNC. But this is to your point about activism, right? That there are these things, and you said this yesterday, right? Like, we don't have to just sit back and agree to do things the way things have always been done. We don't need to be prisoners of precedent. Ooh.
So, prisoners of precedent. Ha! Shundo! You better get on here and preach this morning, friend. Because you know what somebody said to me yesterday? That, well, they said it in a comment under the YouTube live that I saved. They said, the power is not with the people. The power is with the Electoral College. And my thought was, well, who do you think created that? It was people. It was people who created that. So this idea that we are so maligned by what we are currently seeing. Everything can be transformed. Everything was created by galvanizing and organizing people. So I want to lift up someone from Gen Z. It is my god baby, Kimmy. And she says on YouTube, I think the younger generation is frustrated, all caps, because we have so many ideas and open-minded opinions, but many of us feel powerless in a country where extremist adults seem to run the world.
Woof.
And that is from a young person. So when we think about how they are defining this country and how far removed that is from an 81-year-old Joe Biden, I think that has to be given a lot of recognition. Dr. Sharon said, Kimmy better preach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, can I say, oh, this is a good one. Kamala did not wait her turn. She ran for president without the blessing of Nancy Pelosi. Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to go off a little bit. That's good because I love baby boomers. I love them. My parents, who I love more than anyone in the world, are boomers. I worked with so many boomers. Boomers have not done a good job of training the next generation. That is not Kamala's problem. That is Joe
Amen.
Biden's problem. That is
Amen.
Nancy Pelosi's problem. That's Mitch McConnell's problem. That is, sorry guys, that was Ruth Bader Ginsburg's problem, right?
Amen.
We can do better. We can mentor young people. We can have them involved in the process. We don't have to do things the way we've always done them. And we have to think differently. These people, everyone puts on pants the same way in the morning. Everyone brushes their teeth in the morning. Everyone has to shower. No one is different. Like power is very intoxicating. Money is intoxicating. But no, everyone is human. Oh no, my IG live just died.
Oh, I can't hear you, friend. Hold on. Can y'all hear me on? Can you hear me, friend, on the stream? You probably can't hear me
Yeah.
on IG because that's going like this. Okay. Okay, but y'all can hear me here. So I think that, I'm back on IG, friend, if you want to rejoin on IG. All right, bet, but I'm still here on YouTube. So we have been working. Kimmy is our magnificent intern this summer who's been helping us to pull together some organizations to support grassroots who are working on issues that we care about, that are going to be important this election cycle, and also who are organizing in swing states. So you all, please make sure you are subscribed to the justUS listserv or the email list, also to the Politics and Fashion email list, because we're going to be making sure that we get out as much information about how to donate, how to campaign, how to ensure that we are showing up, showing out, and riding for humanity at this point, but definitely causes that represent our interests at this time. And so we have to make sure that we are doing the work. Having these conversations is so important, but it is one, and obviously as well, the first step of many that we need to be organized around, and causes that we care about leading up to the election. All right. Lux, I am getting M back in right now. So in our last few minutes, okay, we got M back in. Perfect.
I was right to keep it horizontal. I'm just going to say, because that's how it was charged, people.
Oh, it died.
Wait. Okay. Guys, we are powerful. We can help change this election. We have to vote. And so, while we're a very small piece of a much larger puzzle, we want to help each other get excited and stay well. And this is what this platform is for. It's to figure out how can we celebrate ourselves and celebrate our communities and get involved in things that we're passionate about that make us feel on fire, but also show up for our life, because we all have to figure out how to cook dinner tonight or whatever we have to do.
I was just about to say that, right? We had to get up this morning and go about life as business as usual, as if something wow did not just take place.
I keep thinking about that. Do you ever like over the last couple of weeks, I've like when I'm like walking on the street or like I go to the supermarket, I'm like, I wonder if they're thinking about it. Like, like I dropped my kids off at camp this morning and I had everything in me not to like accost the writing teacher who's like doing their writing part. Like, what do you think about what happened?
Girl, see, this is why you are my better half. Because I'd be like, why she put them shoes on with that? That's what I'm thinking. Be like, that was an interesting choice, you know? But you know, it's politics and fashion over here. So thank you all so much for joining. Stay tuned. We have a comment here about getting white women more involved with supporting Kamala Harris. I think that actually might be a good next live for us to talk about just how we organize bases to truly mobilize people to action in November. But if there are more specific things you want us to discuss, we are open to it. Stay tuned to the podcast, all of our channels all around the internet. Once again, make sure you are tuned in to our email list. Y'all be good to yourselves today, please. Margo, what are you going to do to be good to yourself today?
I'm gonna I went for a bike ride this morning with my kids. We biked to camp and I'm gonna work out.
I love that. I love it.
And I'm drinking my water, so.
Of course. We already know that, friend. I just set outside like 5 of those huge containers for Crystal Springs to pick up today. I almost took a picture. I was like, Marco gonna be so proud of me. I drank so much water.
It's so good for you.
Thank you, friend. I'm doing better. I am going out to dinner tonight with a friend, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'm also gonna get like back into my reading bag, to be honest with you. I have 2 books here actually I wanted to lift up for you all. Freedom is a Constant Struggle. This is a series of talks by Angela Davis. These are her speeches, and I haven't started this one yet, but it's important, I think, for today's discussion for me to lift up. I got this in Portland. We Refuse: A History of Black Resistance. We refuse. So, all right, good people. We will see you very, very soon. I'm going to end the live here and we will save it, hopefully, over on justUS. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to justUS. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to learn more about our podcast, be sure to check us out on our website at justuspodcast.com. You can also reach out to us there if you want to be featured on the show or if you have a business or a product that you think would be a good fit for our audience. Thanks again for listening.